So picture this. It's the absolute peak of a severe summer drought. The sun is just beating down, the local reservoirs are running dangerously low, and you are staring at a massive, incredibly tense standoff.
Exactly. On one side, you've got desperate farmers watching their crops literally wither and die. And on the other, you've got these industrial giants pumping precious groundwater just to keep their factories running and their workers employed. It begs the ultimate administrative question, right? What actually happens when basic survival clashes directly with the right to a livelihood?
Well, welcome to Ethical Point. Today, we are bringing you a strategic masterclass explainer, and we've designed this specifically for the UPSC General Studies Paper 4 exam.
For sure. Whether you're an aspiring civil servant or honestly just someone fascinated by how public policy works in the real world, get ready. We're going to break down the exact administrative choices and the really tough ethical dilemmas a district collector faces in a crisis exactly like this one.
Here's a quick look at our roadmap for today. We'll examine the core dilemma the collector faces, evaluate the actual on-the-ground administrative options, and then decode the ethical friction behind those choices. After that, we'll build a collaborative action plan and finally wrap it all up with the ultimate UPSC answer strategy. Okay, let's jump right into the thick of it and look at the district collector's central dilemma, which is all about balancing basic human thirst against local jobs. Imagine for a second you're that district magistrate during this acute crisis. You've got an agitated delegation of farmers sitting right there in your office, and they are furious that big industries are using deep bore wells while their entire livelihood dries up. It's a total pressure cooker situation. When you map out the stakeholders here, you see farmers who are terrified of being discriminated against. Then you have industries that need to maintain production to survive. And caught in the middle are the factory workers in this brutal jobs versus environment trap. Meanwhile, the government overhead just wants you to prevent a total breakdown of law and order. So, how do you handle it? We really need to evaluate the administrative options and try to find some sort of middle ground. Right. And as a somewhat skeptical student of administration, I have to ask, why not just deploy the police to stop the protesting farmers and clear the roads? Or, on the flip side, why not just immediately shut down the factories completely to save the water?
Well, because as an administrator, acting in extremes is super dangerous. Think about it. Option 1, forceful enforcement, validates all the farmers' worst fears and risks a violent breakdown of public trust. But option 2, an immediate industrial shutdown that just causes massive unemployment and creates a severe socioeconomic crisis down the road anyway.
Which logically brings us to option 3, the much-needed middle ground, which is balanced regulation and technical auditing of everyone involved.
Exactly. The move here is to declare drinking water as the absolute highest priority, no questions asked. Then you impose proportionate, evidence-based restrictions on all the major users. It restores trust, and crucially, it ensures equity in the sacrifice being asked of the community.
Of course, getting to that middle ground isn't easy. Let's peel back the layers and decode the ethical friction and the philosophy driving these policy choices. Right, because the most painful conflict here is fundamentally the right to life versus the right to livelihood. Under Article 21 of the Constitution, access to drinking water is quite literally a fundamental right.
Yeah, meaning the collector absolutely must prioritize human and animal thirst over any and all economic activities. And look, it is a truly painful choice to halt someone's livelihood, but at the end of the day, basic survival just has to come first.
Actually, let's pause and break down a key ethical concept here, without all the jargon. Let's talk about equality. In this specific context, equality just means applying the exact same water restrictions to everyone uniformly, regardless of who they are.
Which sounds perfectly fair on paper, right? If the rule is a 50% cut across the board, everyone gets a 50% cut. But pure equality doesn't always translate to actual fairness in the real world.
And that's exactly why we need to contrast equality with distributive justice. Simply put, this principle ensures the burden of a crisis is shared proportionally, specifically so the most vulnerable people aren't completely destroyed by the rules. Make sense of it like this. A uniform 50% cut might literally starve a marginalized farmer and ruin his entire year. But for a massive corporation, that same cut is probably just a minor dip in their quarterly profits. Distributive justice actively accounts for that massive difference in vulnerability. Then you also have this really tricky optics problem for the administrator. It's the perception of neutrality versus economic stability. If you let the industry keep running just to save those local jobs, you instantly look biased and anti-farmer to the public.
It is such a sharp dilemma. Do you do what is economically necessary for the region's stability, even if it makes you look ethically compromised and corrupt to a desperate, thirsty public?
We should also define efficiency here, which brings up the classic equity versus efficiency debate. In layman's terms, efficiency just means allocating your scarce resources to whoever yields the highest economic return.
Right, and since organized industry often generates way more economic value per drop of water than traditional agriculture does, is it actually fair to favor the factory over the farmer just because the factory's technically more efficient? It's a tough call.
Finally, to round out the concepts, we have environmental sustainability. This just means managing your natural resources to meet today's needs without completely destroying the ecosystem for tomorrow's generations.
Because if the administration just caves to immediate political pressure and drains the entire river today just to save current jobs, well, there is no future economy at all. The whole system collapses.
All right, that's enough heavy theory. Let's talk about the actual collaborative action plan and how an aspiring civil servant moves from these concepts to on-the-ground practice. So how do we translate all of this into policy? Step 1 is you form a district-level water management committee that includes all the stakeholders, so everyone has a voice. Step 2, you conduct immediate, community-led water audits. And step 3 is implementing transparent resource allocation based on those audits. And to get that real transparency, you absolutely need a water budget. Think of a water budget as a fully transparent public ledger. It calculates the remaining water you actually have left against the district's daily minimum needs. It is without a doubt the ultimate scientific tool for impartial allocation. When the numbers are completely public and evidence-based, those angry accusations of administrative bias really start to fade away. Using that budget, the collector can then place strict mandates on the industries. We aren't shutting them down, but we are demanding real accountability. They have to adopt zero liquid discharge systems, mandate their own wastewater recycling, and actively scale down their production during the peak summer weeks. Also, a smart collector should immediately leverage corporate social responsibility, or CSR. Basically, this is a legal mandate for profitable companies to invest a portion of their earnings back into the local community.
Exactly. You direct them to use those CSR funds right now for emergency drinking water tankers and setting up community RO plants. It visually shows the angry farmers that the industry is actually paying up and contributing to the solution.
And as for protecting the farmers, you compassionately allow restricted irrigation to save their already standing crops. But you strictly prohibit the sowing of any new water-intensive crops, and you heavily promote staggered nighttime irrigation to stop water loss from evaporation. Okay, let's pivot to the exam perspective, which is why a lot of you are here. Let's talk UPSC Main's answer strategy and how to structure all this chaos for high scores. Here is your absolute cheat code structure for a 20-mark case study question. In your intro, clearly define the crisis as an issue of distributive justice. In the body, map out the stakeholders and explain exactly why extreme options will fail. For the way forward, propose that balanced technical auditing model we discussed. And in your conclusion, summarize it all using core ethical principles. And to really anchor that conclusion, you should memorize this specific policy hierarchy. Water for life first, water for livelihood next, water for profit thereafter. Using that phrase beautifully demonstrates to the examiner that you genuinely know how to balance fundamental human rights, social justice, and hard economic realities all at once. To wrap things up, we want to leave you with the classic quote from Mahatma Gandhi regarding the equality of sacrifice. He said, "The world has enough for everyone's need, but not enough for everyone's greed."
It's so true. When survival clashes with livelihood, ethical governance must prioritize need over excess. Take that philosophy into your future administrative careers, guys. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer, and keep learning.